Action must come before motivation because motivation is an emotion and emotions are unreliable. They rise and fall based on mood, energy, environment, and circumstances. If action depends on motivation, progress becomes inconsistent. Waiting to feel inspired gives control to feelings instead of purpose. When action leads, discipline replaces emotion, and results stop depending on how you feel in the moment. Most people believe motivation creates action, but in reality, action creates motivation. When you start moving, even imperfectly, your brain begins to engage. Momentum forms, energy increases, and motivation follows behavior. Sitting still produces doubt, but movement produces clarity and confidence. Action breaks the illusion of readiness. There is no moment where everything suddenly feels aligned, easy, or certain. Readiness is built through repetition, not waiting. Each step taken removes confusion and replaces it with experience. The first move is always uncomfortable because it is unfamiliar. When action comes first, excuses lose their power. The mind often creates reasons to delay, but movement interrupts overthinking. Once you begin, the focus shifts from fear to execution. Problems that seemed overwhelming become manageable through doing rather than thinking. Taking action trains the mind to trust itself. Every small follow-through becomes evidence of capability. Confidence grows from proof, not positive thinking. Each completed task strengthens self-belief and reduces hesitation in future decisions. Action also creates structure. Motivation without structure leads to chaos, while action guided by discipline creates order. Even on days when energy is low, consistent action maintains progress. Systems outperform feelings because systems do not negotiate. When action leads, growth becomes inevitable. Skills develop through use, not theory. Understanding deepens through application, not intention. Mastery is built in motion, not in planning. The act of doing reveals what needs improvement. Delaying action strengthens fear. The longer something is avoided, the larger it appears. Action shrinks fear by exposing it to reality. Once movement begins, fear loses its imagined power and becomes something that can be managed. Action shifts identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who plans and start seeing yourself as someone who executes. This identity change affects future behavior, making consistency more natural and resistance weaker over time. When action becomes the priority, progress becomes unavoidable. Motivation no longer controls outcomes because action is no longer optional. Each step taken reinforces discipline and creates forward motion that continues regardless of emotional state. Fear is not a stop sign because fear does not exist to protect your potential. It exists to protect your comfort. It shows up whenever growth is required and tries to convince you that staying where you are is safer than moving forward. Fear reacts to uncertainty, not danger, and most opportunities worth pursuing come wrapped in uncertainty. Fear often disguises itself as logic. It speaks in reasonable tones and offers believable excuses like waiting for the right time, needing more preparation, or avoiding risk. These thoughts feel responsible, but they are simply fear asking for control. If you listen closely, fear never tells you how to win, only how to avoid discomfort. Progress always triggers fear because progress demands change. When you step into unfamiliar territory, the mind resists because it prefers what is known, even if what is known is limiting. Fear is a natural response to growth, not a signal to retreat. Its presence means you are approaching something meaningful. Most people interpret fear as a warning, but fear is actually an indicator. It points to areas where expansion is possible. The very things you feel afraid to do often hold the greatest potential for transformation. Fear marks the doorway to the next level. Avoiding fear strengthens it. Every time you retreat, fear grows bolder and more convincing. Delay gives fear time to create worst-case scenarios that feel real even when they are imagined. Action weakens fear because movement exposes truth instead of assumptions. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move while fear is present. Waiting for fear to disappear ensures stagnation because fear rarely leaves on its own. It fades only after action proves it wrong. Each brave step reduces its influence. Fear shrinks when you focus on execution instead of outcomes. When attention is placed on the next step rather than the final result, fear loses its grip. Action narrows the mind's focus to what can be controlled instead of what might go wrong. Those who grow consistently have learned to treat fear as a companion, not a commander. Fear may speak, but it does not decide. Decisions are made by values, goals, and commitment, not by emotional resistance. This shift changes everything. Every breakthrough you admire was reached through fear, not around it. The difference between those who succeed and those who stay stuck is not fearlessness, but willingness. The ones who advance act while fear is present instead of waiting for permission. When fear is no longer seen as a stop sign, movement becomes possible in any condition. Growth accelerates because hesitation loses authority, and progress becomes a choice rather than a reaction. Discipline is choosing progress over comfort because comfort seeks ease while progress demands effort. Comfort keeps things familiar and predictable, but growth requires resistance and challenge. When comfort leads, life becomes repetitive. When discipline leads, life begins to expand through intentional action. Every meaningful result is built on decisions made when comfort is tempting. Discipline shows up in moments where no one is watching, when excuses feel reasonable and delay feels harmless. Choosing progress means doing what matters even when it disrupts convenience and pleasure. Comfort offers immediate relief, but progress offers long-term reward. The mind naturally prefers short-term ease, which is why discipline must be trained. Without discipline, comfort quietly becomes the priority and progress becomes optional. Over time, this choice determines outcomes. Discipline is not punishment, it is alignment. It aligns daily behavior with long-term vision. When actions match goals, momentum builds. When comfort overrides intention, momentum stalls. Discipline keeps effort consistent even when motivation fades. Progress requires repetition, and repetition requires structure. Discipline creates systems that remove decision fatigue and reduce reliance on willpower. By committing to routines, progress continues regardless of emotional state or external conditions. Comfort avoids discomfort, but discomfort is where skills are sharpened. Discipline places you in situations that demand focus, learning, and resilience. Each uncomfortable effort strengthens capacity and expands what feels possible. When discipline becomes a habit, resistance weakens. What once felt difficult becomes normal. Comfort zones shift outward, allowing higher standards and greater consistency. Discipline transforms effort into identity through repeated action. Progress over comfort also means delayed gratification. Discipline chooses results that matter later over pleasures that feel good now. This trade-off separates those who build lasting success from those who settle for temporary satisfaction. Discipline builds self-trust. Every time you choose progress, you reinforce the belief that you can rely on yourself. This trust compounds into confidence and reduces inner conflict between desire and responsibility. When progress is consistently chosen over comfort, growth becomes inevitable. The direction of life is shaped by daily decisions that prioritize purpose over ease. Confidence is built through execution because belief without evidence is fragile. Thinking positively or repeating affirmations may feel encouraging, but confidence only becomes real when it is supported by action. Every completed task provides proof that you can do what you said you would do, and that proof strengthens self-belief. Execution turns intention into experience. When you act, you gather feedback, learn what works, and discover what needs improvement. This process replaces doubt with understanding. The more you execute, the less space fear has to operate because uncertainty is replaced by familiarity. Many people wait to feel confident before they start, but confidence is not a prerequisite for action. It is a byproduct of movement. The first steps are often taken with hesitation, and that is normal. Confidence grows after you move, not before. Each execution, no matter how small, compounds. Small wins stack into larger belief systems. Completing minor tasks trains the mind to expect success. Over time, this expectation becomes confidence rooted in repeated follow-through. Execution also builds resilience. When you act, you encounter obstacles and setbacks. Working through them proves capability under pressure. Confidence strengthens not because everything goes perfectly, but because you learn that you can handle challenges when they arise. Without execution, the mind exaggerates difficulty. chaos seem larger in thought than in reality. Action corrects these distortions by revealing that most challenges are manageable. Confidence increases as perception aligns with reality. Execution forces responsibility. When you act, you take ownership of outcomes instead of imagining them. This ownership creates maturity and self-respect. Confidence grows when you respect yourself for doing the work, regardless of the result. Consistent execution builds identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who hopes and start seeing yourself as someone who does. This identity shift makes confidence more stable because it is rooted in behavior rather than emotion. Confidence through execution is sustainable because it does not depend on praise or validation. It comes from internal evidence. You know what you are capable of because you have proven it to yourself repeatedly. When execution becomes habitual, confidence becomes automatic. Action reinforces belief. Belief reinforces action, and forward momentum continues through consistent follow-through. Clarity comes from movement, not thinking, because the mind cannot fully understand what it has not experienced. Overthinking creates the illusion of progress while keeping you stationary. The more you think without acting, the more confused things become, because clarity is revealed through engagement, not imagination. Thinking alone magnifies uncertainty. When you stay in your head, questions multiply and doubts grow louder. Movement interrupts this cycle by shifting focus from possibilities to reality. Once action begins, information becomes practical instead of hypothetical. Many people wait for clarity before they move, believing understanding must come first. In reality, understanding is a result of motion. Each step taken provides feedback, and feedback produces direction. What was unclear becomes obvious once you begin, move. EMENT simplifies decisions. When you act, the number of choices narrows because reality filters out what does not work. Thinking keeps every option alive, but action eliminates what is unnecessary. This process creates focus. Clarity develops through trial, not theory. You learn faster by doing than by analyzing. Mistakes become teachers and adjustments become clearer. Action transforms confusion into lessons that guide the next step. When you move, you engage with resistance. Resistance reveals strengths and weaknesses that thinking alone cannot expose. This awareness sharpens judgment and helps refine direction. Clarity deepens through real-world interaction. Thinking often seeks certainty, but certainty rarely arrives before action. Movement accepts uncertainty and works within it. This acceptance reduces mental pressure and allows clarity to emerge naturally through experience. Action grounds ideas in reality. Concepts that seem powerful in thought may fail in practice, while overlooked ideas may succeed. Movement reveals truth without emotion or assumption. This truth becomes clarity. Progress depends on the ability to adjust, and adjustment requires feedback. Feedback only comes from action. Each move provides information that improves the next decision. Clarity grows step by step. When movement becomes the habit, clarity becomes continuous. Direction evolves through action, and forward progress replaces mental stagnation. Delay has a cost, even when that cost is invisible at first. Every moment spent hesitating quietly subtracts from potential. Opportunities do not wait for comfort or certainty, and time does not pause for indecision. What feels like harmless delay slowly compounds into lost momentum. The price of delay is often paid in missed chances. While you wait for the perfect moment, conditions change and windows close. Someone else moves, learns, and improves while you remain in the same place. Delay allows opportunity to drift out of reach. Delay also weakens confidence. Each time action is postponed, self-trust erodes. Promises made to yourself and left unfulfilled create doubt and internal resistance. Over time, hesitation becomes a habit that feels harder to break. Mental weight increases with delay. Unfinished intentions occupy the mind and drain energy. The longer something is avoided, the larger it appears. Action releases this pressure by converting intention into movement. Delay feeds fear. When you do not act, fear has more time to create imagined consequences and worst-case scenarios. These thoughts feel real even though they are untested. Action replaces speculation with experience, Action, on the other hand, creates immediate reward through progress. Even small steps generate relief, energy, and clarity. Movement proves that forward motion is possible, which strengthens motivation and focus. Rewards of action extend beyond results. Acting builds discipline, confidence, and resilience. Each step forward reinforces the identity of someone who executes rather than waits. These internal rewards compound over time. Action also creates leverage. The earlier you move, the more time works in your favor. Learning, skill development, and improvement accelerate when action begins sooner rather than later. While delay multiplies regret, action multiplies opportunity. Every move opens new paths, connections, and insights. Momentum attracts further momentum, making progress easier with time. When action becomes the default, growth becomes consistent. The cost of delay is replaced by the reward of movement and forward progress.